country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't trying to sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it. Ain't a country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't trying to sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it.
Okay, firstly, I gotta address apologetics. It doesn't make sense, I'm not sorry, I don't get it. The fact that he was crucified means that we're all indebted. We should demand to have a culture that doesn't soon forget it. Every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess it. Christ is king, listen up, get the message. The time is short, the deception is impressive. The church itself is corrupted and wretched. They preach about grace, no righteousness expected. God gaze at the pulpit because their sin is accepted. The devil calls, they don't even try to reject it. They're employed by Satan, they are tax exempted.
Ain't a country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't trying to sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it. Ain't a country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't trying to sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell
It's
it.
neither land of the free, nor is it home of the brave. When you got people here killing babies every day, and all the Christians here think that they can get away if they throw a couple bucks into the bucket on Sunday. But I don't think that that's the way it works. He said to seek the kingdom and its righteousness first. But you wanna grab a handbag, a Rolex, and what's worse, you think that you deserve it, but the bubble's about to burst. It's time to rise, sell the cloak for a weapon. Got the sword in my left, in the right, Smith & Wesson. And I don't think it's wise for you to try to be testing. If you become a Goliath, then I'ma teach you a lesson. It's a cost to see, and what the cost will be is the people in the church and state accosting me. But I'm speaking honestly, you are not the boss of me, because I only give allegiance to the one true king. And I don't care if we burn down this whole country, cause it's wretched and rusty and rotten, stupid and ugly. And I got no love for churches and preachers set up above me, cause their democracy's about to be replaced with monarchy.
Ain't a country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't trying to sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it. Ain't a country
What
club Christian, I'm a
is
zealot. Truth's gonna
up,
hurt, man,
everybody?
I ain't tryna sell it.
Welcome back
You can refute it,
to the
you'll
Main
regret it.
Character
That's how
Podcast,
I tell it.
level 81, made possible by the Cult of Con. That's you guys. I'm Con Man, and thank you for being here. Today's episode is powered by the Christian Dominion movement, because the truth should not only be declared, it should be imposed. Am I right? I think that lies are imposed right now. That's why we're here tonight, okay? Because there's so much crap going on in the world that we just got to talk about it. Guys, it's so good to have all of you here once again. Wednesday, hump day, trash day. You already know what it is. We're going to pop over here to the chat, say hi to everybody. Let's go ahead and see those honks in the chat. Let's see what's going on. I hope your ex doesn't show up for this one. Inside joke. Ask Morpheus. I don't even know what to think about that. Good to see you, Doctor Who. Welcome in. We've also got Wendy. Oh, Wooga. Let me go ahead and... Wendy is the captain of the big blimpin' party blimp, which is our upgraded cult transportation vehicle with Kool-Aid fountain built in. It's kind of like how on a jet, like an airplane, they come over with a cart, only you just have a dispenser for Kool-Aid right there at your seat. It's a great feature. It's good to see you guys. I see we got Code A in here. We got Cage Fighter. Let's go ahead. I know Cage Fighter loves to just drop one long honk. Let's go. Good to see you guys. Of course, as always, for Wednesday night, we also got Mika. Good to see you, Mika. We got Amelia. Did I say Code A already? I just like Code A. Code A is a great name. It's just funny how that happens. You know, somebody types your name wrong in the chat and then it just becomes your new name. That's a great story. Let's see. We've got Philium Jades. Ho amigos. Oh, is that supposed to be ahoy? Well, we're not a boat, but perhaps there could be a nautical division of the cult. Perhaps you can be the captain of the big blimpin' party boat. I don't know what you want to call it. Big fishin'. Oh, good to see you, Mama Khan. Welcome in. What's with the tank top? You in the Bahamas? It just gets hot in here. Had a long day. I was warm when I got back. I'm just taking it easy. Hope that's not a problem. We got Aaron. Eyes for Truth. Good to see you, my friend. Welcome in. We've also got Robert Allen. Brother Connor, hope all is well. I'm feeling good, doing well, Glad to have you here, man. Yeah, I got kind of a rough day on Sunday, not gonna lie. I guess the basic principle is I ate salsa that was too old or something. I was messed up. So I spent all night feeling like a balloon. Like I literally feel like somebody pumped my body up with a bike pump. I thought I was gonna die. Anyway, I survived. Here I am. But we missed out on Sunday service. That's a little disappointing. We'll be back regular schedule this Sunday for service as always. We've got Bree Bake 68. Welcome in. I think you're a new one. I don't recognize you unless it's just a different username. But welcome in, Bree. We also got Kathy 32. Welcome in, Kathy. And my man Marcus. We also got Pearl. We got these two. Great. No rest for a Marcus. IG time was time for some learning. Okay. Good to see you as well, Pearl. Let's go ahead and throw one of these in. Let's go. I think we're mostly caught up. Oh, everybody's getting in, right? All the back of the bus. Get back there. We got Precision Rifleman. Welcome in, my friend. Good to have you. We also got Gary Alsop Jr. Hello, all from the UK. You must be up late, my friend. Hey, you're in the right place. We're the last show on the West Coast, I think. I'm sure there's some midnighters that do some crazy stuff, but Aaron says, glad you brought Connor. I sent prayers. Neither I can tell when you guys pray for me. Like, if I ever ask, you can, like, feel the power. I'm not even joking. There are some members of this community that I think have a special gift of prayer. And I don't really think that people talk about that stuff very much. That, like, the different spiritual gifts. And, like, I pray for people and things all the time. And I don't know if prayer is my spiritual gift. I don't know. But I feel like certain people, when they pray, things happen. The Lord hears them. And I'm impressed. I'm amazed. So keep doing what you're doing, guys. I love that. God bless you all. We always say on this channel, you can't have the truth without the way, the truth, and the life. That is Christ Jesus. So at least we're getting that, as the foundation of everything we're going to talk about. Because we're going to talk about a lot of BS tonight. So at least we've got the truth grounded in Christ. We'll just go from there. I thought I saw somebody. Good to see you, brother. Half Truths for CDM. Good to see you, brother. I'm excited to kick it with you tomorrow. I'll send you a message. We'll get details planned out. We'll get it all sorted out. But I'm excited. We'll get a chance to go out and get some chow, talk about things. You know how it is. Let's see. We've also got Jenny Layton. Good to see you. CDM Party Yacht. Let's go. Then we got to get like one of those fog horns. Like wah, wah. We're close. Our air horn is closed, but we're gonna need some serious foghorn action. We've also got Try Again. Welcome in. I think that's Amy, right? I can never keep track of the two names that we have in this community, but it's good to have you. Also have Sam Parker Fox throwing in the classic. We'll go ahead. There we go. And I think we're just about caught up. That's everybody, right? Oh, we got Hokma, my good friend. I almost missed you. As soon as I do the accent, it reminds me. I was getting ready to wear a different hat. Because of the episode and everything. We'll show more about it in the thumbnail, but I was getting ready to wear a hat because, the thumbnail has me kind of dressed as Indiana Jones, and I have a hat that I'm like, that's pretty good, but I put it on and I realized, first of all, it looks very Jewish, but I have a problem with, like, everything I do is incredibly Jewish. I don't know why. I just keep going to it, and I put it on, and I was like, all right, everyone. But I have it here as an audible. If everyone demands, I put it on. It's not really Jewish. It's more like a cowboy hat. I was like hoping for an Indiana Jones, but it's really just a cowboy. It should have been like, maybe it's Crocodile Dundee. I should have gone for Dino Dundee up in here and been like, it's like, you call that a knife? Well, I'll put it on. Why not? You call that a knife? This is a knife. It's like an actual cowboy hat. It's not Indiana Jones. I look like I'm ready for a hoedown over here. The Colt to Cowpokes, yeehaw! Party wagon, yeehaw! We've already been down this road. We've literally been here before. There was one episode where we did have a 10-gallon hat, which is a little more impressive, but I guess now I'm sticking with it. Party wagon, yeehaw! Okay, let's get down to business. Oh my gosh. Okay, level 81, made possible by the Cult of Con. That's you guys. Thank y'all for being here. Now, let's see. I did write things down because I knew I wasn't going to be able to get to it. Let's start with the good stuff. This is not a sponsored episode, unfortunately, but we are gonna share the fact that we've got this right here, and today's message is: start the year with a full heart and a full tank. Sinclair Oil Company. And so it's really best said by Crow777. He said you cannot separate the dinosaur thing from the fossil fuel thing. They are absolutely inseparable. So we'll be talking a little bit about both of those things tonight. Don't you worry. It's not just about dinos. It's also about big oil. But what really inspired today's episode is, as you guys may have heard, with the ongoing releases of the Epstein, I guess I wasn't supposed to say his name. Well, the cat's out of the bag. I was going to call him Big E, because apparently just saying his name can get you banned on the internet now. They're really locking that thing down. They know, shut it down. That's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Shut it down. That's the wrong accent. Although maybe, I don't know, Arnold. His last name, I can't even talk about that on stream. Whatever. Arnold Schwarzenegger's last name means, Schwartz means black in German. So his last name is Blacknegger. I'm sorry. I think it's a joke they're playing on us. I'm like 10 minutes in, I'm going to get banned already. I'm not saying inappropriate things. That's that guy's name. Okay? That's your corrupted mind. Okay, let me try to get on topic before I get banned literally. So Jack Horner, the famed paleontologist, was implicated. He was implicated. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger. All right, check it out. Roll clip.
Jack Horner is one of Montana's most recognized scientists, a groundbreaking paleontologist who helped rewrite what we know about dinosaurs. But last week, his name appears in a different kind of file. Thousands of documents released by the U.S. Department of Justice related to Jeffrey Epstein. In emails released from 2012, Horner thanks Epstein and the girls for hosting him at the financier's New Mexico ranch. He describes the property's geology, even mentioning its potential for fossils. Horner also discussed his Dino Chicken project.
Hold on. He's still talking about fossils? He's on Epstein Island, and he's like, there might be, in the wall of this cave over here. Oh my gosh. What a freak. Hold on.
Controversial effort to reverse engineer a bird to more closely resemble a dinosaur, and sought Epstein's support for a conference connected.
He's literally a mad scientist pedophile. You can't make this up. He's over here trying to reverse engineer birds into dinos. He's trying to create Jurassic Park and kill us all. I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's horrible. This is how I cope with stuff. I have to laugh at the audacity of the situation.
To the research. Montana State University confirmed Horner visited the ranch in the summer of 2012 as part of a paleontology tour.
Oh, of course. It was totally a paleontology tour. What a great excuse. Well, I was on Epstein Island, but actually, I don't even think he went to the island. He went to the ranch. I don't know if that's much better. Yeehaw!
Retired 4 years later. According to reporting from the Montana Standard, a statement posted online last week, Horner said he knew Epstein had a prior conviction for soliciting prostitution, but claimed he was unaware of the broader sex trafficking network when he met him.
Do you ever get that feeling when you look at pictures of Epstein that in the same way Joe Biden has this weird uncanniness where he doesn't even look like a real person, and sometimes he looks like a different person? I get this image is from him when he was look, so this is him mugshot.
Epstein had a prior conviction for soliciting.
But then who's that guy? I thought that was George Bush for a second. I was like, wait a minute, what?
Prostitution, but claimed he was unaware of the broader sex trafficking network when he met him. He called the decision to seek funding from Epstein, quote, extremely poor judgment.
You think? He decided that the decision to receive financing from Epstein was, in hindsight, not the best idea. Of course, he knew nothing of the 2006 arrest or anything. And, oh, man. It's like I would list all of the people I thought were villains. Like in 2018, my brother and I, we used to like send each other text messages that were supposed to be like from the government. It was this role playing thing we did. It was just a joke, but it'd be a list, like an update to the operatives, because obviously we know everything. It was during like the Q time when everyone was really big on Q, and everyone had developed this identity, including maybe myself got a little carried away too. But everybody kind of thought, well, we're the special insiders. The government's telling us all the secrets, and so we would send messages to each other like updates, like operative updates, and be like, breaker, alpha bravo code signature, and then it would send a text message that said something like what's his name, Mitt Romney. It was like Mitt Romney, and it was a text to speech, so it would like do it in an accent like Australian or whatever. It'd be like, Mitt Romney has been identified as a satanic pedophile. It's like, he has been scheduled for execution. And we did this for like 2-3 years trying to cope with the insanity, because we knew how crazy this was. And we would like just try to deal with it by trying to joke about it and make jokes. So like, oh, they caught him, Mitt Romney, implicated in the files. We used to joke about this. We'd talk about Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Guys like Jack Horner are the exact kind of guy you'd be like, oh, well, that guy's a Satanist. That guy's that guy's been to the island. And then years go by, and finally we get here, and it's true. That it's just the reminder of the fact that all of these liars and freaks at the top of all of these things, whether it's like politicians, media, corporate executives, and it even branches out into stuff you never would have thought of at first. The biggest lies in the world, the top of NASA, the top of paleontology of our age. And I'm not naming individuals. I'm just saying, like, this is what you find, right? The correlation is positions of incredible power, connections with Jeffrey Epstein and the nation of Israel, apparently. Or Russia. It could be Russia. Maybe. But not likely. So anyway, I just wanted to remind you, these liars come in all forms, and they always happen to be sitting at the top. They're running everything, apparently. So again, the reason we started today with, well, we'll go back, we'll look at it one more time. We started today with Sinclair Oil Company, because I've driven past a few of these gas stations. I've seen this Bronto or whatever it is out here, and that is the mascot for their gas company. And it takes me back to obviously being a kid and being taught what we were all taught, which is that gasoline is a byproduct of fossil fuel, that dinosaurs who were destroyed by a not necessarily certain destruction. There's talk of meteorite destroying the world, an ice age, and all these various things that could have been responsible. But all we know is that all dinos were around, and then they were pulverized, some hundreds of millions of years ago, a couple 100 million, give or take 50 or 100 million or something like that, from the late Cretaceous period or whatever. And so they know, they've been telling us our whole lives that we're putting dino juice in the car, okay? We're filling the car with melted dino juice, and that's just the way things are. That not only do you need an entire race of species to be wiped out and melted in order to power your car, but there's also a limitation to it. There's an amount that exists, a finite amount. And if you think that you can drive your V8, your gas guzzling car for the rest of your life, think differently. Change the way you repent. Because they want you to believe that there is a limited amount of this stuff and it's going to run out, and at any given time the prices have to go through the roof due to some war or some conflict or some situation they can fabricate at a moment's notice. So just keep that in mind. We're all in a sort of a stranglehold for gasoline. I know some of our older viewers were around for some of these gas crises, right? Like in the late 70s they had the one where they were like, like gas lines due to the scarcity. And other people were around in, I guess it was the late 80s or the early 90s, had another crunch, right? Where they were like lines, and you had to have a social security number that ended in an odd or even number to line up at the gas station and stuff. Super crazy, totalitarian like window into the world we're living in now, but it was like we didn't know back then. Like, who could have known in 1979 really the extent of how bad this was? Except for when you were sitting in line at the gas station being told, no, you have to come back tomorrow because your social security number is a different number. It's just crazy, man. We've been managed as game animals or as livestock for way longer than we thought. But besides that, it's just the reality that they've been teaching us stuff like this. And the idea that the dinosaurs are the gas, the melted dinos are the source of our vital fuel industry. That, like, at the end of the day, we talk all about alternative power generation, right? We're like, oh, you know, nuclear power, solar and wind. And we have all these systems that are working, but not necessarily reliable or you know, have much longevity. And at the end of the day, it always falls back on coal and gasoline and diesel fuel. I mean, that is literally, humanity thrives on those fossil fuels, so to speak, for lack of a better term at this moment. And so that's the issue, right? We're in the stranglehold of fossil fuels, and it is all predicated on the real beginning, which is the big myth, like from the very start. So let's talk about the first dinosaur myth. And we started with Sinclair because it's so relevant. And, you know, I actually, it's funny because I've been thinking about gasoline a lot in the last week, just believe it or not, because I've been working on Bamalam. You guys know the Project Carb and putting it together. And right now she's in need of like fuel pumps and filters. And it's a semi-difficult job. It's going to be a little intrusive. And I know I'm going to be soaked in gasoline. I'm going to be smelling like it. So I'll be thinking about it a lot. Gasoline. And it makes me want to pull up. I pulled this up earlier knowing that we were going to be talking about gasoline today. Gasoline from Gastown. Anyway, I'm trying to stay on topic here. Okay, so yeah, so we'll get back to petrochemicals soon enough. But let's talk about the root of the myth and the lie, which is the idea that gasoline comes from dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs are even what they say they are, or just let's start at the beginning, right? Okay, so let's start with some stuff that cannot be denied, right? So one of the first myths about dinosaurs is that they existed sometime in the ancient past, some very ridiculous number. Now, let me clarify it first by saying that the science of this is really poor. You know, I've seen atheists and others attacking the Bible because it talks about events that took place, you know, within the last, like they say, 2,000 years, and even maybe prior to that, BC. But we're talking about just a couple thousand years of human history recorded in a book that also includes some pretty wild stories, some pretty unbelievable stuff, but it doesn't change the historical element that we're expected to believe stuff that happened in this book was within the last 2,000 to 4,000 years, effectively. And there are atheists and agnostics and such who will attack the authenticity of the Bible because there's just no way that's correct, or that this much time has passed. How do we know if those documents were fabricated? How can you tell that evidence is viable in that scripture? You know, they target that. But the leading narratives regarding dinosaurs at all has to do with abstract lengths of time that are not just a couple thousand or even 100,000. We're talking about people who casually throw out 150 million years. Like they just write, well, you know, anywhere from 155 to 212 million years ago, they lived and walked on the plains. But how the heck do you know that? 150, just the casual arrogance by which they say it is what blows my mind the most. They tell us that we're all religious and we believe in some magical caveman, big spaghetti monster, archaic book. And it's like, at least I have something that's old at all. You have nothing and you just make it up. 150 million years. That is an absurd number. I would be more likely to believe you if you told me the dinos were 60,000, 100,000. Even that is an incomprehensible amount of time. No one can even begin to imagine what that would look like or how to scale that. And you're talking about from the perspective of someone who's literally microscopic compared to that timeline. A person lives maybe 100 years with a good life. 100 years is a drop. It's a fort in the wind compared to 150 million years. You don't know that. You can't. So before I get too triggered, let me at least just make the point to say that, like, we're not dealing with people who are being sensible when they're talking about dinosaurs, as I called them as a kid, Dawasawi. I think that's accurate. Maybe it wasn't me. Maybe it was my brother that called. I remember them being called Dawasawi. Anyway, so the initial myth is that they've been around in the ancient, unbelievably long distant past, and that they never existed alongside humans. So let's talk about that myth. Let's break that down first, and we're gonna look up the tomb of Bishop Richard Bale Cathedral and Tomb. So this is a man who died, and we can even get a little bit of a read up, but he was a bishop at Carlisle Cathedral between 1478 and 1495. He died the following year in 1496 and is now buried in the floor of the cathedral. His tomb, what's happening here? I'm experiencing some very weird things. Okay, anyway, his tomb, which is inlaid with brass around the edges, shows a nearly 5-foot image of Bishop Bell. Around the edge of the tomb are a number of Latin inscriptions and depictions of various animals which are clearly identifiable: dog, rat, pig, fish, and bat. These are not the most high-definition images here on this, but we'll get to it. I'll show you guys up close. You're welcome to look this up too. This is the cathedral and tomb of Richard Bell, Bishop Richard Bell. So we have some animals, and then what is obviously the most awe-inspiring is this here, which is what most people say is an image of two sauropod dinosaurs with their necks wrapped around each other, like hugging. And now it's kind of a little tough to tell exactly what we're looking at. So I knew it would be that way, so I pulled up another one. That just kind of like this image kind of shows it up close. It's not really the best. I had it popped up on another page and it was big and I don't know what I did. Maybe I just, it's because I had the whole page zoomed in like really far. Oh, how about like that? Okay, so this is essentially the image in question. You see the brass relief and what the details we're missing, because it's kind of hard to see that its little head comes up right here and that the other one's head is over here. But when you look at it, they're doing this, they're hugging. And one of the important narratives is like, see how this one has these like spines on the tail? That's so indicative. Like that's literally like what this dinosaur is. It's got a big tail with like spikes on the end of it for bashing you. Now, I know this is crazy, but like let's just take into consideration the fact that these people are not like crazy or making it up. Let's just say that during the era that this guy lived, those creatures were not mystical, mythical, or from 150 million years ago. At the time in 1496, when this guy was buried, for whatever reason, they put dinosaurs inside this guy's tomb. But it actually goes farther than that. Because there is dragons on the columns outside the cathedral. So depictions of dragons on the archway leading into the cathedral. So how could this be, since the bishop's tomb was sealed and decorated over 300 years before dinosaur bones were dug up and became known as a group of animals that roam the earth? If we accept the Bible's account of creation and Earth's history, we know that dinosaurs were created on day 6 I don't think we know that. That's a little bit assumptive. But let's just say what we do know is that the tomb has dragons on it. That's what we do know. Okay, so there's dragons and sauropod dinosaurs on this dead guy's tomb, 1400. Wild. Okay. It doesn't stop there. Looking at dating to 1186 AD, the dinosaur of Tapram is a bas relief in the Khmer Empire, the temple monastery of Tapram. Numerous reliefs of various animals are present in the temple. The dinosaur is one of its more ambiguous artworks. The relief first gained modern notoriety in the late 1890s when the lobe-like features running down the animal's back were compared to the back plates of stegosaurian dinosaurs. The relief has since become a popular piece of evidence for the fringe belief that non-avian dinosaurs once coexisted with humans. Now, I don't think that it's mutually exclusive to non-avian dinosaurs. I don't know if their current myth includes that there was like pterodactyls flying around in the night, but they're the only dinosaurs that are still around in recent history, or if they're trying to say, oh no, those didn't even exist until after, and then they were the between species that translated into chickens. You know what I mean? I just say I don't know where they're at because I stopped tuning into the delusion long ago. I was sober from that Kool-Aid. But yeah, so this is the relief here. You guys have seen it. We'll blow it up big, try to make it the best picture you can see. But what we have here is like, here's its head and its legs and its back and its tail. And, it's got these like what appear to be what some would call spines on the stego. And it's among these other things, like it's very interesting. There's other like animals here. That's a stegosaurus for for reference, I guess. Okay, no, and I can see what they're doing. So they're trying to say, like, perhaps it's this boar, or, you know, does it more resemble these, or does it more resemble that? I think that's a fair way to analyze the image. A Javan rhinoceros, that's this guy, and a wild boar. Okay, Stegosaurus. Interesting. We'll come back to these in a little bit, too. So with that being said, there is yet another example that, if authentic and real, dates to, like, literally the 1100s. So we're talking about, again, another time, even farther back in time than the 1400s, that effectively proves that, you know, if this is authentic, that human beings were coexisting with these things, and you know, variety of these, you know, more or less. And that is really, I think, the bottom line that's the most important about stuff like this, is that it is very difficult to understand, with the narrative being that there was not even a discovery of dinosaurs until the 1800s. That they did not have a classification or a study related to, or even like this phylum or whatever you want to call it, associated with dinosaurs. It just was not a thing. So let's talk about when dinosaurs actually came to pass. So the first character involved in, let's see, where'd he go? Oh, I'm ahead of myself here. That's fine. Not William. Richard. Okay, get a load of this guy. So Sir Richard Owen was an English biologist, comparative anatomist, and paleontologist. Owen is generally considered to have been an outstanding naturalist with a remarkable gift for interpreting fossils. He produced a wide array of scientific work, but is probably best remembered today for the coining of the word Dinosauria, meaning terrible reptile or fearfully great reptile. Because as you know, terrible doesn't necessarily just mean like it sucks. Terrible means it's of a terrifying nature. And so this guy has a name for it. They say that he's an outspoken critic of Charles Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection. Owen agreed with Darwin that evolution occurred, but thought it was more complex than outlined in Darwin's On the Origin of Species. So Owen's approach to evolution can be considered to have anticipated the issues that have gained greater attention with the recent emergence of evolutionary developmental biology, additional pseudoscience. Anyway, so this guy, I mean, this goblin, I mean, look at him. He's just scary. Look at those soulless eyes. Maybe that's me being judgmental. Hey, you lived in a hard time, you know, the 1800s, steam-powered stuff, and riding on a horseback and smoking lots of cigarettes or whatever. Maybe that's all. Maybe he's just a ghoul from his time, and oh, that's an incredible building. Oh, the British Museum of Natural History. Okay, so this guy, I mean, let's be honest, this guy was involved. He was plugged in. So the term was coined by him in 1841. So that's when we first hear about dinosaurs, which originally comes from Greek words meaning fearfully great lizard, which is like, yeah, I don't know why I don't have the Greek word written there. Whoops. Whatever. Initially intended to capture the awe-inspiring size of these prehistoric reptiles, the name persisted despite many inaccuracies. Right, because they're like, it's not a lizard, it's a... Anyway, it's a common thing that there's all this semantic detail that people try to argue about when it comes to this stuff, because that's kind of how they keep you lost in the weeds so you never get to the root of what's really going on here. So what are myths? Myths are a traditional story, especially one concerning the early history of a people or explaining some natural or social phenomenon, and typically involving supernatural beings or events. So let's look at the 1800s, right? We got this guy, born in the 1800s, serving in the, he was knighted as, let's see, with the Order of the Bath, which is the most honorable Order of the Bath, one of those organizations. So he was one of those, and obviously he was the head of that museum. He was at one point they made him the superintendent of the Natural History Department of the British Museum, as it says. So this guy was really important to the establishment. So it's not like this is some guy who on his own came up with something. This guy was the guy in charge of this. This was his department in, during the 1800s. A lot of let's see, narratives were written, and say history was altered. And I think this guy was instrumental in part of that. That being that during the 1800s, they were finding all kinds of things in the ground, let's be honest. Not only were they finding large, inexplicable bones, many of which were recovered by the Smithsonian and never seen again, They were also finding oil in the ground. That's a big part of the 1800s narrative, is the discovery of shale and crude oil deposits and the beginnings of the birth of fossil fuel industry. It's a direct component involved in the Industrial Revolution. So we get the advancement of steam technology, much of which is powered by coal, which is another subterranean derived fossil fuel, so to speak. And then you also have liquid oil and shale, which is also something they're discovering in the 1800s. So we need a way to explain all this stuff, right? The world is emerging and learning new things, and times are changing. Things are being, I guess you could say, reset during the 1800s. And during this time of Great Revision, terms are starting to come out to explain things like gigantic bones being dug up in various circumstances, and also these new fuels and their respective technologies that come with them. And there's probably a lot that could be said about, reverse engineering and whatever, the old world. But really, we're just sticking to the basics here of the narrative. This guy basically needs to Trojan horse a way to explain things that are very complicated and in a sense supernatural, just as like the concept of a myth is. It's a way to explain these things, these phenomenons. But it's also these phenomenon. The way to explain it also is the Trojan horse for the purpose of it in the first place, right? So let's just for a second touch on the idea that it's the 1800s, they're changing history, they're changing the world. And this is a bit conspiratorial of me, but I think our community can handle it. But let's just say that in the ancient world, they used to have very advanced technologies to build inexplicable buildings. Well, that technology is not available today. And it's my belief that part of that transition was to take away the free access to advanced energy systems and to create instead an enslavement system where energy was monetized, the opposite of free energy, right? Now, there's a whole episode to be had about free energy and fossil fuels themselves and their true origin. But aside from discussing that, I want to focus really on the myth that birthed this whole thing, which is the idea of dinosaurs. Now, we know that the idea of dinosaurs is on its face a complete farce. That's like the whole point of the thing. In fact, we forgot to touch on the thumbnail, Jurassic Farce. So I just was like, okay, I'm Indiana Jones running from dinos in this. That's like the basic principle. And one other thing I think is important to note is that we had the logo changed from a T-Rex to a dragon, because that ties into what we're talking about today too. And of course, I know I'm not the first person to talk about any of this. I don't want you guys to think that I think I'm like the progenitor of any ideas. I have my opinions and thoughts, and I just like to share them with you guys. And I really do think that there's some truth to both ends of this, right? So if you go back into the farthest annals of history, dragons have coexisted alongside humans in all of the literature, whether it's European conflicts against dragons or whether it's like ancient Chinese myths about elemental storm creating dragons and all the respect they have. And it's a huge integral part of Chinese culture, especially the oldest of Chinese culture. And so on one hand, we have this discovery of the 1800s, dinosaur bones, right? And so then there's the invention of the term dinosaur and this field of animalian, whatever, these reptilian large creatures, okay? We're finding them supposedly, and we need a way to explain them. It's actually quite remarkable to me that you can simultaneously have a narrative created like dinosaur with no acknowledgement of the literature and lore that was rampant even in the 1800s about dragons. How can you read a book from the 1500s or from ancient China, scrolls and scripts that exist today? They passed through this guy's era. This guy was alive in the in-between when the Chinese guy wrote down the scroll, and then thousands of years went by, and then this guy was there, and it just went by him as he made up dinosaurs, and then the scroll got to you to know about Chinese dragons. What I'm getting at is, it's not that they were ignorant about dragons. They wanted to scientify this thing. Is that a word? They wanted to scientismify this thing, because there was an ancient understanding of what these things are. So, let me make sure and clarify that when I say dinosaurs are fake, I'm not saying that large reptilian creatures don't exist in the human history. I think that would be preposterous to make that claim. It's like, obviously there's something there. And I'm not saying that the bones are real. I'm not saying that the science of it is real. I'm saying that there has to be an acknowledgement of the fact that multiple different cultures who had nothing to do with each other all agreed that there was some kind of a lizard, flying, fire-breathing, powerful thing like an animal that was more than an animal. And I think that that is something that can't be ignored. So are dinosaurs real? Not in the way that we think they are, but there's something there. So I want to get to the bottom of that. There is a series of events that take place in the subsequent time, which is in the later 1800s. And we'll talk about it a little bit. So after our first guy, Goblin, what's his name? Sir Richard Owen. We'll look at him one more time for reference. He's so spooky looking. Ooh, yikes. Anyway, so after his initial discovery, we have what is known in history as the Bone Wars. And we'll read on that real quick. The Bone Wars, also known as the Great Dinosaur Rush, was a period of intense and ruthlessly competitive fossil hunting and discovery during the Gilded Age of American history, meaning the late 1800s, early 1900s, marked by a heated rivalry between Edward Drinker Cope, of the Academy of Natural Sciences of Philadelphia, and Othniel Charles Marsh of the Peabody Museum of Natural History at Yale. So we have some competing science museum history type universities each one is getting to the farthest reaches of space. Well, my rocket went all the way to Jupiter. Like, that's where these guys are at with dinos. They're like, oh no, well, I found a Terra Super Megasaurus. Like, they were on this one. And so these two guys were in a race to make up more stuff than the other guy. It takes me back to like Jesuit map authors where they were making up what they saw in faraway lands to make it seem cooler so they could get more money to do more exploration. I'm not saying they didn't see stuff, but they definitely embellished the story. Like, saw a weird bird that looked kind of scaly. I saw a six-winged dragon with fire breathing. Like maybe. Or maybe you like getting paid to sail around. I don't know. And this is the exact same thing. These guys were being paid a lot of money, the kind of job that if you had it today, it'd be like 150 or 200 grand a year. It's like a full-on like upper class job. And you're also it's not just that you're being paid, like you're prestigious. It's Yale. It's the Academy of Natural Sciences of Philadelphia. It's like a tax money hole. That the country's at war, yet we keep funding these universities. You know what I mean? It's no accident. It's an appointed position, let's be honest. And both of these guys were appointed to duke it out, making up dinos, because the last thing people are going to do is question the authenticity of dinos. What they're going to do is pick a team. Are you on the side of Charles Marsh of Othniel, or are you on the side of Drinker Cope? Drinker Cope, that's good. That's like a drunk guy is coping by making things up. That's about accurate. So the search for fossils led him west to the rich bone beds in Colorado, Nebraska, and Wyoming. From 1877 to 1892, both paleontologists used their wealth and influence to finance their own expeditions to procure services and dinosaur bones from fossil hunters. Okay, so the long story short is these two guys basically just made it up. By the end of the Bone Wars, both men had exhausted their funds in the pursuit of paleontological supremacy. I bet they exhausted a lot of funds at the local brothel. I'm just going to throw that out there. Heck, if they're anything like any of their descendant, positional ancestors, or even familial ancestors, perhaps, they're probably exhausting all of their funds on the pursuit of kids on Epstein Island, or the 1800s equivalent. Don't be surprised. I mean, I'm sure we're not going to find that out. The Epstein of their time died several hundred years ago, I would hope. Unless he is some sort of a non-human entity. That's probably talk for another time. But anyway, so the Bone Wars, right? So right after we find out dinos exist, all of a sudden it's a gold rush for dinos, and these two main guys are pulling out dino bones left and right, naming new species left and right, establishing the history that we know today as paleontology, which of course never became a legitimate science, but was always built on the predication of something that was fabricated. Not that the creatures never existed, but what they are and where they came from, which is so fundamental to understanding what this even is. So it's like I said, you have to understand the truth, and the only way you can really understand the truth is because of the way, the truth, and the life that is Christ Jesus. We said that before. So when we're out here in the world looking for answers, we want to know what is this stuff, what's going on here, we have to be able to kind of parse through all this and figure out what really matters and what's really important. So when it comes to the argument about dinosaur bones in the museum, I'm not here to say whether or not there are such a thing as massive prehistoric or otherwise unknown species bones. Okay, I think there's actually truth to the fact that they exist. I'm not saying you go in a museum and see a giant T-Rex assembled in there. First things first, those are not real bones on display. It's so important that people understand that, because they would, first of all, not be able to. They're so ancient and fragile and valuable, right? Let's just say that's the case. So they're not on display for reasonable reasons. But even more so, right, if they don't exist, they're definitely not on display, so you can put that in your pocket too. But just know that, like, what you see in books and magazines and even at the museum is not real. These are replications. These are creative, based on a couple ankle bones. They built a whole dinosaur out of it. That is an entire science. It's almost like paleontology is that. How to invent a monster from one femur. You know what I mean? And that is, again, more of that getting caught in the weeds about whether there's really bones or not. There's definitely bones, because all around the world are these mounds with giants in them. And people dig up giants, whether you're a Native American or an 1800s explorer. The Smithsonian wants it, and they come and they take it for study, and you never see it again. Because the real purpose of these museums and organizations of natural history is to create a natural history for you. One that they have decided is real. One that doesn't give any credit to the fact that the world is far more complicated, crazy, and a magical place. They don't want you to understand that there's a real God who made the world, and it's not so cut and dry as some Big Bang from 1931. So what we have is this complicated situation, right? Some bones are true, some bones are false, but the worst part about it all is the deliberate smokescreen created about it, so that whenever you hear about it, think about it, see it, or have any reference to any sort of bones in the ground, it's a dinosaur, okay? And I know that the actual facts are a little bit different, right? I think the actual initial discovery of this original dinosaur, that's actually who William Buckland is. Let's go back over there. William Buckland is an English theologian, geologist, and paleontologist. So this guy is, he's the one who wrote the first dinosaur account ever. So the other guy popularized the term and the industry, right? The guy at the knighted one, you know, the knight of the three crown thing, the order of the bath or whatever. But this guy, a little earlier than that, this guy wrote the first full account of a fossil dinosaur, which he named Megalosaurus in 1824. So as you can see by the image, they're probably limited, like a whole dinosaur made out of like a hip and a jaw from like a donkey or something. This piece doesn't even look like it matches that piece, to be honest. It's a different color than that. Maybe I'm too stupid to understand this advanced science. But anyway, so Megalosaurus, meaning great lizard from Greek megas, meaning big, tall, or great, and sauros, meaning lizard. Does that ring a bell? Anybody know Soros? I know. I can think of one. That's another can of worms right there. George Soros, meaning lizard. You can't make it up, man. That is so funny. Let's keep reading. We don't need Megalosaurus. What we need is the guy that came up with it. The Bone Wars. Oh no, what did I do with him? Oh, I closed him out. Okay, whatever. Okay, it wasn't that important. That guy wrote the initial dinosaur thing, but it was about fossils they'd found in like the late 1600s. So the reality, like 1676 or something like that. The reality is that they claim the very first ever finding of these bones was the 1600s. So no sooner than that. It still doesn't have any explanation for the bishop's tomb and the sauropods and the dragons outside. And it doesn't have anything on the 1100s in Cambodia. And I'm sure there's other examples of this. I heard about, what do they call them? These like petroglyphs. And there's like a lot of sets of petroglyphs that purport to show dinos. And I didn't think any of them were like compelling. So I didn't really share them, but there are some petroglyphs that supposedly show dinosaurs from, hundreds of years ago, or even, thousands, according to the different scientists' estimation. And of course, I don't really trust the experts. I'm like not one of those guys. I don't believe in experts. There are no experts. But, there's people who devote their life to this stuff, so I give them some credibility. I mean, they're doing it more than I am. So I try to give, some credit where credit's due. I don't just reject everything wholesale, but there's a lot of holes in the plot. And this is one of those where it's like 1600s. I don't even know if I believe these guys. Remember, at the end of the day, history is a set of lies agreed upon. So I don't even know if any of this is real. Oh yeah, well in 1821, when he was founded the museum of whatever, and it's like a giant impossible building that he works at. Like I think we forgot. We didn't really even cover that. Like, no, not these guys. The other guy, the ghoul. He works at a building that looks like that in the 1800s. Like that's where he works. Oh yeah, well this was probably founded. Let's look at it. The British Museum, Natural History. Come on, when was it founded? It was either founded or established. Yeah, it was established in 1881. How about constructed? What can you tell us about the decision to construct it using 500,000 bricks or whatever it's made of? Look at it. It's totally epic. We forget sometimes because we walk around going to like shoebox buildings and like those strip malls and stuff, and we don't realize how insane that is. It's not even justifiable. Why do you need all those towers? Again, I'm getting caught in the weeds here. I need to figure out how to get back to where I was. Right, okay. So the ghoul and then his friends, they invented dinos. Okay, long story short. But their dinos were invented after dinos were already carved into things. Dragon lore had already widely existed, and so we have a fundamental problem with the dinosaur theory, whatever. The long story short is that I don't believe it when we find out the narrative is that these dinosaurs evolved several 100 million years ago into different dinosaurs, and ultimately, and I remember this, I was alive during this time, and maybe obviously I was alive. I was a kid during this time, obviously, and maybe some of you are close to my age and remember this, but I remember being taught as a kid the idea about dinosaurs and that they were all these like kind of scaly reptilian monsters, you know, and I'd seen countless hours of documentaries with like CGI dinos like sniffing the grass and looking around and like grabbing eggs from a nest and like running around. I think they have it's an entire. It's like, I've seen dozens of hours of movies purported to be totally real. Like, oh, this is what they look like. This is what they eat. This is what they're completely made up. Complete conjecture. Complete fantasy. Not a single shred of accurate truth. You can't prove any of this. 150 million years ago, this is what was going on. You don't know anything. You think yourself to be God. You think that you have some sort of, well, you plebeians can only know what happened within the last 10 years that you learned in school. But I know what happened 250 million in the Cretaceous period. Or it's like, oh, shut up. You don't know anything, man. That is so crazy to me. But anyway, so I think I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. Let's try to get back to the path here. Okay, so anyway, right. So dinosaurs are not what we think they are. And there's a ton of this Masonic theater involved here that has to do with Richard Owen, the Dino Wars guys, and even Charles Darwin. And so Richard Owen is a kind of guy who is not necessarily like a creationist. I think they kind of say he was. They kind of give him the creationist moniker, I think. But ultimately, he is the controlled opposition to Charles Darwin. So Darwin comes out with this theory of evolution and how he wants it to be. And this guy comes out with like a counter theory. But let's not forget that in all the situations, it's always controlled. We see this today in modern politics. It's like when, good to see you, Brother Bruce. It's like when you're going through this and you're being programmed in school of this stuff, you're basically expected to see the story they want you to see. And the way they create that story is through opposition control. So if there's a narrative that comes out and it sucks, they'll raise up an individual to target the narrative who will fail to defeat it, and then forever everyone will say, it was proven. So Charles Darwin had this bad theory of evolution. They raised up an actual goblin. Like, they brought this guy to represent you. Yeah, everyone wants to side with him. He looks real friendly, and, you know, he's in no way possessed, and, you know what I mean? Like, look, if you're expecting somebody to like pick sides, well, who was right? I'm not that guy. You know what I mean? Like, why? This is the guy we're supposed to believe has all the knowledge and intelligence. He's literally like a goblin, and that's who they set up as the opposition to Darwin. And of course, in the end, he loses. You know, this guy loses the argument, and he's kind of taught to be a sort of the skeptic, and like he failed, and Darwin's theory proved true in the end. And so you can see there's like profound controlled opposition taking place in the situation here, and it's just crazy. He's portrayed as the creationist detractor to Darwin, and he is mowed down in the field of in the scholarly field. And the end result is that Darwinism becomes the foundation for nearly all modern science, right? Because everything else is built upon this idea that we're in some sort of a happenstance and not a creation of God. Everything is working out as a product of some sort of random nature. And it's amazing because they had that. There was this randomness and there was no explanation. All the way up until 1931. So for like 50 plus years, they lied about everything, evolution and everything, until they needed to invent more evidence to justify their belief system. They later said, the Big Bang, because we can tell because of observations, because, we know what happened 250 million years ago, and we can see 250 million light years away. So you got these couple of guys, they're not just content with ruling over you. They must be seen as omniscient gods. Like, it's actually crazy, the narcissism of these people. It's so crazy, man. I can't even believe it. So just like the modern U.S. election system, they raise up the candidate they want to win and the candidate they want to lose. And so when you put up somebody like cackling Kamala Harris, the natural inclination is for people to believe, she's not going to win against Trump. So even though a lot of people might have voted for Trump or not voted for Trump, that's not really what matters. What matters is the perception. Kamala was horrible and dooming to destroy the country. Trump claims he'll fix it, and he was president before, so he'll probably be fine. And then he wins, and nobody questioned that election. They're like, yeah, of course he beat her. Everyone was all upset about Joe Biden 2020. It had to be rigged. But when Trump wins, it's authentic this time. It was authentic before, but then they cheated, but then it was fine. Like, come on. Mental gymnastics, my friends. And that's the point of all this, is to keep you constantly having to try to reel and catch up with everything that's going on, because it's all insane. It's absurd. It doesn't make any sense. And so that's the point. By drowning you in an endless sea of semantic garbage, you'll never get to the root of what's really important, which is the fact that these things are real, but they are not dinosaurs, okay? And I don't have the answer for you. I think we're going to have to stretch this and talk about this stuff next week, I think, because there's more that I have to break down into to even really rationalize all this. Well, let's just say we're talking about, what are they really, right? They're writing the story that they want to tell. So whether or not we believe in the mainstream dinosaur narrative or not, these big reptilian things have been a part of the human legend since as far back as anyone can remember. There are myths more ancient than dinosaurs to explain what they really are. And I think that a good place to start with this then would be to look at the Chinese zodiac, which I did pull up for a second, but let's check it out real quick. The Chinese zodiac is a traditional classification scheme based on the Chinese calendar that assigns an animal and its reputed attributes to each year in a repeating 12-year or duodenary cycle. The zodiac is very important in traditional Chinese culture and exists as a reflection of Chinese philosophy and culture. Chinese folkways held that one's personality is related to the attributes of their zodiac animal. Very interesting. That's like the Western zodiac, too. Originating from China, the zodiac and its variations remain popular in many East Asian and Southeast Asian communities or countries, such as Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, Singapore, Nepal, Bhutan, Cambodia, of all places, and Thailand. Interesting. So I actually have a picture of it somewhere. Is it this? Where'd I put it? Here, let's go back here for a sec. Let's find out what I did with it. Aha! Here we go. So this is the zodiac. It's a Chinese zodiac calendar, just a sample for you guys. The most recent. Last year, 2025, was the year of the snake. You knew I was a snake when you let me in. Anyway, and this year's the horse. I don't know what we've got going on here. There's a horse, goat, monkey, rooster. Anyway, so as you guys can see, a whole assortment of animals that you know about. I mean, we'll start here. Snake, horse, goat, monkey, rooster, dog, pig, rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon. And so the real importance is, as we discussed in the beginning, obviously it's part of ancient Chinese legend. But it's also, should be it should be pointed out, right, that it should be observed that the dragon is on the zodiac with all these other things that are just real. You know what I mean? Nobody's out here questioning the authenticity of rooster or of rat. You know what I mean? Rabbit. And it's interesting because we have a creature just casually thrown in here that's mythical among all these supposedly, I mean, not supposedly, these not mythical creatures. And then we have the dragon. And I think that it's really important that we touch on this because obviously some cultures in history, including the guys who built the temple for our late bishop, including the people who built the temple in Cambodia, these people knew about this stuff and they did not think it was mythological or fairy tales. It was part of their culture. It is such a deep ingrained part of Chinese culture that it's like literally part of their calendar. It's how they keep track of what year it is. They have a whole year devoted to this thing. If it's not real, that's crazy. It's like next year, the year of the like hoop snake or whatever. Like next year, the year of the chupacabra. Like, you know what I mean? Like we gotta figure this out, man. It's not totally made up. There's truth in fiction. You know, and we're talking about myths. We're talking about like the way to explain what something is. It seems to me like the Chinese were aware that something existed in the world that was of a certain description. It was a snake-like flying creature of size and of majesty that they respected and revered. And it was no joke. It's a huge part of their culture. It's like everything in China. And so I'm not just gonna like, you know, one of the things I'm big on in the most recent era is like the Eastern cultures that we treat them like they're aliens. We treat Chinese and Russians like they're some kind of weird aliens. America has this programming of xenophobia against Chinese and Russians, and it really bothers me. It's really started to bother me a lot in the modern age. And this is my probably my best reference point, which is that this is an ancient group of people with some really powerful stories and some really amazing history that we don't touch on because they're Chinese. We like our country treats them like they're some weirdos or something. But like, I want to know what they've got buried over there. What do they know about dragons that we don't know? You know? And so that's what gets me curious about that. But let's talk about other instances where dragons are referred to. This one is, I think, probably the most compelling. Especially since as a believer and stuff. And it's part of the Revelation account in the book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 9. And it says, "So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him." Now, this is part of a larger narrative of the war in heaven and everything. But in nearly all translations, including the older ones, the term they use for Satan is the great dragon. And it's cross-referenced the serpent of old. So he is both the dragon and the serpent. This is essentially indicating that this is the same. They're not mutually exclusive. The serpent in the garden is a dragon. And the book says so, okay? And I don't think that's really that difficult to understand because we have the seraphim, which translates to burning ones or fiery serpents in Hebrew. They are biblically described as six-winged, serpentine, angelic beings, often considered the highest order of angels closest to God's throne. These figures represent a bridge between divine, fiery beings. Through their root meaning and description are often interpreted as a celestial dragon. So I'm under the impression, I believe like Satan himself is of a different classification of angel. But again, this is all such complicated and convoluted stuff with also the added element of our history's been rewritten by a bunch of evil Talmudists and pedophiles. So we got to try to navigate that. But I think that it's really kind of simple, right? There is a pre-existing term to describe lizard-like, majestic and complicated species of beings, you know, and whether they're a stegosaurus or it's like a flying, like the desolation of Smaug or whatever. Like, I don't know. I think that there's species. I think that's something that we could point to any kind of creature in the world and find variations. I mean, even people, there's different races of people. So it's not like an impossible thing to think that some dragons fly and some dragons swim and, you know, and so it's not incomprehensible. And I think that there should be a discussion about the different kinds of dragons in the sense that Lucifer, Satan, the dragon, the serpent of old, is not a guy. You know, he's not like a dude. What I'm trying to say is he's not a man. He's not a person like us. He's not a human being. So even if for some reason Satan is like other angels and can appear, maybe he's a shapeshifter of some, he can appear in a human form. He's not really a person. He's not a man. He's a spiritual cosmic entity. And so we heard this, and in the write-up it said that they can sometimes be described as like a celestial dragon. And I think that really I think is the cross with Chinese. Because the Chinese depiction of a dragon is not really often thought of as like a fleshly being, like a monster. It's thought of as like a god. It's like a deity. And so it would not be far-fetched to believe that the ancient Chinese had contact with and reference of seraphim, serpentine, fiery serpents of a cosmic nature, of which many must be in the earth because the rebellion in heaven cast a third of the angels down. So if some angels are this class of seraphim, then there's a chance that some number of seraphim were sent to the earth with the rebellion and are here in the realm. So is it too far-fetched to believe that Chinese were worshiping and revering fallen angels? That is totally par for the course with the world's history. I mean, come on. We've got Native Americans and their giants and their ancestor spirits and Nephilim. And I think that it's highly possible that fallen angel deities of the old, communicated with, fraternized with people, including Chinese or even European descent, and they were embodied in the form of at least this celestial dragon form, which is an angel. It's a fallen angel. And that also doesn't take away from the fact that if there's a fallen angel seraphim, there's a light angel, a angel of the light of the Lord's host. That's also that same creature. So keep in mind, if you saw a dragon flying through the sky, you can't pinpoint off the top of your head without some kind of discernment, eyes to see, direct vision of God. Otherwise, you would just see a dragon and be like, "Oh shoot!" And you don't know if it's a good one or a bad one. That's the spiritual implication of this, is that they do exist in the spirit, and they may be loyal to the Lord or to the devil. That's spooky stuff. But I think that we go a step farther when we start to think about it from the sense that there are species of creatures that are not angelic, that are dinosaurs, right? So we have Stegosaurus and crap. We got Tyrannosaurus. We got all these sauruses. And many of them are fat and slow. They're not flying. They're not breathing fire. They're hugging each other. According to the bishop's tomb, they're friends. They like each other. They're very animalian in the way that they're depicted in literature and lore. Even the scientists today talking about dinosaurs, they're constantly trying to rationalize and normalize their patterns of behavior and how they must have coexisted with one another in the environment. And they very much try to normalize these things. And I'm not saying that it's impossible that they really existed or that they don't still exist today in the outer lands. And I'm not saying that they don't exist today in some of the lands that we just don't go there. We're not allowed in X part of the national park or some far reaches of India's jungle. There are places that we don't know that they could still be. I'm not throwing that out. I'm just saying we don't see them today, yet their legend persists even in times before their legend existed. You know what I'm saying? Even before the legend of dinosaurs was written, dinosaurs were carved into the halls of various places. So for whatever reason. And the legend of dragons goes back even farther. So we have some kind of serpentine, non-human entity. And I think that it's fair to say that the Bible talks about the fallen angels sinning against man and against animals and against plants. And I think that it's viable to believe that not only are there humanoid Nephilim giants, which we know those are real, and I think that those account for many of the bones that are found in the ground. When you dig up bones and you find a giant femur, it's not a Tyrannosaurus, it's a giant dude. And they can't have you knowing that. You can't know that. That doesn't fit with the evolutionary Big Bang ball cosmos narrative. You literally have to have an explanation that takes people completely away from reality and into some kind of pseudoscience. That's what dinosaurs do. If I dig up a giant femur while digging a trench next to my workplace and I pull it out, I'm expected to say, anyone who says, "Oh, it's a dinosaur bone," that is all anyone would say. If I pulled out a giant human femur and be like, "It's a giant Nephilim bone," everyone would be like, "What? What are you talking about? It's clearly T-Rex leg." They already have the answer. They already know everything. They see 250 million years in the past. They know 250 million light years away. They are gods. And so when they see you dig something up out of the ground, they also know what that is too, because they're experts of everything. Okay? So the point I'm trying to make is that there are humanoid monster giants that are people-shaped. And then there's other things. And I don't think it's far-fetched to believe that sinning against animals is how you get other things. Now, I'm not saying that any creature at all is like inherently evil, but I mean, if you had some kind of animal Nephilim hybrid monster, it would likely be some kind of a dragon thing, like what you could call a dragonoid. And it would probably manifest in various ways. Like you get a fat, slow one with spikes on its back, Stegosaurus. Or you get like a flying, wispy one. And apparently they're not limited in size to being giant. You know, like in the movie Mulan, she's got a little dragon. I always forget his name. Shifu, I think is his name. And he's a little fiery dragon, little fiery serpent, but he's small. He even is shapeshifter. He can size up and down. That's another thing that we don't really think about when we watch that movie. Something I forgot about until just now. That is kind of scary too, to think if they can size shapeshift. That's even more scary. But anyway, I would consider Shifu to be more a spiritual nature. He's probably like a demon or a fallen angel of some kind. And I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about physical creatures of the flesh. And I believe it is highly likely that some of these creatures, as a manifestation of sins against animals, manifested as dinosaurs, so to speak. Now, I don't like the term dinosaurs, but in the way that they explain it, it's a terrible lizard. It's like a big, not good. It's not a little like gecko or whatever, you know what I mean? He's not trying to sell you cheap car insurance. He's trying to eat you. And like, you know, it's nothing new to think that the giants want to eat people. That's literally the literature of the lore of the Bible, like that these giants with a Nephilim, whether they're the humanoid Nephilim or the sin animals of the Nephilim, they want to eat you. They want to eat each other. They're eating everything up in here until the Lord floods the world and destroys them. But that's not where the story ends. We know that there were giants after the flood and that there are still giants after the flood, even to the point where I think that today we have been seeded in our population with giant people who are, to us, just expected to be seen as just really tall people. But they've got a DNA strand of a non-human race, and they just insert it into the government's compendium of humanity. And we're expected to believe like a 7'8" weird guy with a foot like this long that's just a guy who's tall. Oh yeah, let's just blur the lines of what a human is. Let's start saying, well, you know, some humans just have 3 eyes and reptile claws. You know, some people are just born that way. It's like the mutants in X-Men. They're always trying to make you feel bad, like everyone's so racist against them for being mutants. And it's like, you're a Nephilim. It's not racist. You're not a person. You know? And that's I think the basic way of looking at it with these giant monster type things, these dragons, Stegosaurus or whatever. I think that we're looking at potentially a physical flesh incarnation of the same serpentine DNA strand that comes from these seraphim fallen angels, and they are not people, they're beasts. And I think that transcends into many other ways. But there are some examples of these that I think is worth talking about even today. But before we get too far into that, let me show you guys. There's a movie, you guys have probably seen it before. Where is it at? Where's my How to Train? So this is just a brief. This is not an exhaustive list. I guess it is actually 163. This is just in the lore of the How to Train Your Dragon show, which is fictional, and you know it centers around people who live in a northern colony. And they hunt dragons. They're like a Viking-style race of people. They hunt dragons for a living until at one point, one of their guys, makes friends with a dragon, right? And they start domesticating them and being friends with them, ultimately leading to, I'm sorry if I'm spoiling the the story, but ultimately befriending the dragons and living together with them for many years until continually certain humans try to exploit the taming of dragons for warfare and for dominion superiority, and it becomes essentially a well-understood thing that the dragons and people can't live together because the people will abuse and use the dragons for ill will, even if they are just animals, you know. Because I also think this is true that one thing we need to consider is like when you have a Nephilim that's like a man, like it's a person in a sense that it has a mind, will, and emotions, hopefully. I mean, not hopefully, but I guess probably, because it has intelligence that is, it makes it capable to do evil willingly. Whereas like animals, on the other hand, even if they're like mutants and some kind of nephilized monster, it probably isn't evil in the sense that its creation is of evil, but it's still just a beast that just goes around trying to eat and live like any other animal. I mean, this is very much conjecture, but we're talking about people who say 250 million years ago, I think I can assume how a monster might behave if it wasn't programmed in its mind to do evil. I mean, like I have a cat that like bites the crap out of me sometimes, and I don't think it's evil. Like you could more on cats. But anyway, so it's just interesting. Look at how many different ones: a sea gronkle, a sentinel, a shivertooth, shocktail, silk spanner, silver-tailed ironclaw. And this is not unique to any one lore at all. Like, there's different kinds of dragons in Lord of the Rings. There's different kinds of dragons in Harry Potter. There's different kinds of dragons in Skyrim. Like, part of the Skyrim lore is that you have these different elemental dragons that can control, like, the storm weather and, like, and fire and water and ice and all these different things. And so it's very compelling that all of this stuff exists, even if it is fiction, because fiction and myths are born out of some kind of a real phenomenon that needs to be explained. That's how we get dinosaurs in the first place. This idea that there's this animalian thing that needs to be, categorized and understood, even though nobody can prove that any of them were alive at the time that anyone was studying them or talking about them, and no one can prove they're alive today. I mean, even if they are. We can't see them. We don't find them. We're not interacting with them, especially not in this territory that we call the world that we live in. So I think that it's definitely possible that they're real. And if they're real, there would be varieties. And so we always think about like, the fire-breathing dragons of Europe, the fighting with the knights and everything. And there's a lot to unpack about that, because maybe the ones they're fighting are beasts. Maybe they're not fighting fallen angels in Europe. Like, maybe they're fighting monster fire-breathing dragons that just want to eat you and steal your sheep. I mean, that's kind of the lore of How to Train Your Dragon. The dragons show up to try to steal their sheep and food, and they capture the dragons and then fight them or kill them or whatever until they realize that the dragons just are like pets. They're just animals. If you feed them and take care of them, you can tame them. How to Train Your Dragon. It's like I made him How to Tame Your Dragon. You know what I mean? And I think there's some truth to that possibility, because we've got people who got like lions in cages and stuff. I'm not saying that this is a uniform science of taming dragons, okay? I don't know anything about that. But I'm just saying it sounds possible, right? That these, if they're animals, like it seems, that they could be in some way captured and domesticated. And when you see like the bishop's tomb and they're like sauropods like hugging and stuff, it makes you think like those are pets, dude. That guy probably had 2 sauropods as his pets and they loved each other and he had them as, I'm just throwing out, I don't know. I'm just saying, okay? So there are real dragons. I'm not crazy. So like the Komodo dragon, we all know about the Komodo. Let's pull it up. We'll get a picture of it. Why not? Shouldn't be too hard. Komodo dragon. Let's just take a little look at this feller. Certainly a reptilian if I ever saw one. Big, heavy, chunky boy, loves to eat, dangerous, poisonous. And I think it's really awesome that we acknowledge that it's a poisonous dragon. Because in the lore of the whole, How to Train Your Dragon, there's different kinds, and they're not all fire breathers. Like some of them like are a venom spitter. And this Komodo dragon has like poison saliva that'll kill you. On top of the fact that it's huge and fast and other things. And this is not the only one of its kind, but when you see something like this, you could say, well, I mean, look how big it is compared to this person. I don't know if I can get it to zoom in all the way. Let me get a better look at this, but not really. Whatever. Good enough. It's like double the size of this dude or whatever. It's giant. It's a monster. Kind of cute, honestly, but it's a dragon. Okay, we've got dragons where they're not unheard of, and I think there's even more examples of this kind of thing in the world. So another example I was looking at is, let's see where I got it. I got it right here. Check this thing out. If you saw this and you didn't know what this was, like what would you attribute this to? Like, look at the length of its neck and its pointy head, and it's got these little like chubby feet. And I mean, this is literally a penguin. And when you look, when you look at the skeleton, if you thought its shoulders stopped down here where the bones are, you'd think it'd have a long neck and like probably big wings. Like you would illustrate this thing as a dino guy as being some kind of crazy pterodactyl looking thing. That's what it looks like. But then when you see what it really is, a little chubby guy. Look at how cute he is. Anyway, obviously, this is what happens all the time, right? A set of bones is pulled out of the ground, and these guys invent and fabricate some kind of an exoskeleton for it that is not the cute, fuzzy, animal that it really is. And they create some kind of a pterodactyl or something. And I think that another one that should be discussed is the fact that we have... Oh, I think I actually have it right here. I do. Oh, shoot. I accidentally closed it. Great. One second here. Rhino skeleton. Check it out. So, rhinoceros, of course, that's a pretty intense looking set of bones right there. I mean, obviously, when you look at that, you know what a rhinoceros is. You've seen this before. And I went through this thing where I fed the AI this picture of rhino bones, and I was like, design this dinosaur. And I was like really trying to make it into a rhino anyway, because it's like, it knows the anatomy of this. But this could just as easily have been dug up and been they could have called this a rhinoceros. It already is. Rhinoceros is rhinoceros. And so we're looking at this thing like it's here today. This creature is not unheard of or unknown. This giant monster, which is actually also very cute. But, I mean, look at this thing. Imagine getting charged down by one of these things. That's terrifying. That is a terrifying... I mean, is it a lizard? No, because we know that it's not. But, I mean, look at that scaly thing. Look at that leathery, horned beast. It's like in the same family as Triceratops, right? And again, this is one of those examples of something that exists today, and we know... I think we could look up the stats on extinction. See what it says about it. It's not going to tell us exactly how bad it is. Oh, okay, here we go. Northern white rhino, functionally extinct in the wild. Only 2 females remain, relying on assisted reproduction. Western black rhino declared extinct. Black rhino critically endangered. Southern white rhino near threatened. So there's other subspecies of rhinos as well, and we can get into that at some point maybe. We probably don't need to, but the point is that there are these rhinosauruses alive today, coexisting, Komodo dragons alive today, and other weird creatures like platypus and everything else that coexist today as strange creatures that like we just kind of overlook how weird they are. Because we've got a separate classification for dinos, and these are all mammals, and so they're not like that. And like, how do we know that dinosaurs even laid eggs? We don't. We don't know that they weren't mammals. We don't know that they aren't still out there somewhere in places we're not allowed to be. And so I think that the most compelling thing about this is the fact that, like, if rhinos went extinct completely on the earth, and 50 or 100 years went by for people who didn't know, so like a cataclysm or something, the world blows up, nobody remembers anything, lost all history, and then they dig up bones of rhinos, they're going to do the exact same thing they've done with every other dino. They're going to put a lizard skin on that thing. It's going to have a tail with with thorns on it. It's going to be like, the cuticles. It's got claws that, they're biodegradable. They're almost never found with the bodies. We only find the skull with the horns on it. And it's like, when they were digging up elephant skulls back in the day, they thought it was a cyclops because it has a big hole in the front of the head for the trunk. And they were like, it obviously has an eyeball right there. And that's not what it is. So if this could happen to a creature that we see right here and right now that's alive, what's to say they couldn't take and take something that used to be alive and completely misinterpret what it is or what it was? And that ties into the whole, are the dino bones even real? I can't tell you what for sure is real because this is a compartmentalized system run by people who the greatest contributors are hanging out and having lunch with Epstein on his ranch and with random girls of unknown age. And so this makes it difficult to get a clear-cut story because the people who tell the story, the official narrative drivers, are liars and pedophiles. So it's like, just like with anything else we're trying to get to the bottom of, it's very difficult to, because clearly the people who are propagating the stuff are totally untrustworthy on the surface. But then they have a narrative, right? And this is kind of where we go when we get to the end of this dragon kind of section, dragons are often depicted as flying. And so as a kid, I watched as they went from the dinos and all the hours of documentaries of rooting around as stealing eggs and stuff. And all of a sudden, dinosaurs came out with feathers. They decided the narrative was something else. No, these are the ancestors of birds, and birds are actually the evolutionary progeny of dinosaurs. And so all of this they base on the reality of, they go start looking back at their dino bones, and they start saying, well, these bones are incredibly porous, and the skeletal structures are very reminiscent of avian creatures. And all of a sudden, there's like a moment where it all coalesces together. How the heck is a giant, leathery, scaly, fire-breathing monster gonna fly around? It'll weigh thousands of pounds. Yeah, how big do the wings have to be on an elephant or a rhino to get that thing airborne? I'm not talking about cosmic. I'm not talking about seraphim. I'm not talking about cosmic dragons. I'm talking about like a beast. It would have to be avian. It would have to have biological similarity, right? It's not an evolutionary similarity to avian creatures. It's a biological similarity to avian creatures. And then I start thinking, what happens if you mix a chicken and a seraphim, dude? Right? Like, what happens when you mix a seraphim and a bird? You know what I mean? Any bird. Eagle, hawk, seraphim. Like, you get a dragon bird. You start to get into territories like, what's a phoenix? You know, and shout out JT. He and the other guy, Brian, and I think Aaron was on there too. They were talking about griffins just the other day. And they were talking about, are griffins real? And there's biblical evidence for griffins. So griffin also is another creature that's like, it's like a bird head, lion body, beast thing. And so I'm not saying that the griffin is a Nephilim by any means. I'm just saying that there are mystical creatures that are hard to explain. And I think it's possible that they dug up a bunch of porous dragon bones. And it didn't make a lot of sense that they were supposed to be these heavy, lumbering creatures because they're probably like birds now. They're probably very lightweight, very spindly creatures. Except for the ones that walk around on the ground, the chubby ones, you know. But there's probably some flying dragons, right? There's these pterodactyls, or just what we call a dragon with their wings, a hydra or whatever, you know, a wyvern or whatever. There's these different creatures of dragons, like some are flying, and I think that just what happened was someone in the semi-modern age was like, we got to try to explain this, because if anybody finds these dragon bones, finds out how porous they are, they're going to ask questions. So let's just say they're the ancestors of birds, and any porous bones you find that are big, too big to be a bird, well, it's not a dragon. It's just a dinosaur, which is the ancestor of probably some mid-evolutionary dragon or a dino that they invent. So it's like, it's a something hopalapa, you know, shabalabasaurus. You know what I mean? And so it just allows them to continue to divert your attention away from what you really found. If you dug up a dragon in the backyard, they would be like, oh no, dinosaur, not a dragon. Because if it was a dragon, what's the implication? That serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, the seraphim class of fallen angels and righteous angels. And then beyond that, creatures as a product of the fallen angels sinning against animals. That is a telltale, fact-based proof that the Bible's real. You know what I mean? Like, we're living in a world of people who hate God, who are trying to erase him and his kingdom and his history and everything. And so why wouldn't they work to erase creatures that are part of the narrative of his story, of God's great work in the world, the creation, whether it was something he made or whether it was something that was perverted in the conflict that is real that we can't ignore. Either way, it's these people's goal, from the Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson types to the Jack Horner paleontologist types, whose job it is to obscure the reality and mess with your mind and confuse you and make it impossible for you to know what's really going on out there. Are dragons real? Probably. And they're probably not anything like what we think. There's probably different kinds. There's good dragons and bad dragons, celestial and physical. Some that can fly, some that are lumbering, some that are small, some that are fast. They can probably do all kinds of things we never would have imagined, because in the scope of the world we live in, this seems impossible, because we think we live on a ball flying through space. We can see 250 million years into the past and 250 million light years into the future. All I know is that that's all preposterous. Somehow we have to figure out what's really going on here. And so I'm looking at this from the perspective of like, so maybe they're not fully lying about them existing. Maybe they're just mostly lying about what they look like and what they know about them. By feigning a whole industry of study, it allows them to not only, like we said in the previous, that it gets you caught up in the weeds so you never get to the root, but it also is, again, a Trojan horse, right? The dinosaur narrative is the one that ties directly. It's like, as Crow 777 Radio said, there is no distinction. You cannot have the dino myth and the fossil fuel myth and not have them directly into. They're inseparable from one another. And I think this ties into what we were talking about earlier, where the 1800s were a period of great upheaval and great reset, I think is the best way to describe it. And one of those most important elements was taking us from a society of advanced technology and free energy, and to transition us into a slave class that were reliant on a finite fuel source. because something that's free costs no money. And so we're talking about how mad they were when Nikola Tesla invented this DC current, and they were mad because it was too easy. We need to make it more complicated. We need to make it more difficult so that we can measure how much we're sending. We need to charge them for the amount of power we're generating. We need to monetize energy so that when they go to work and spend their energy at a factory, we give them an amount of money for that exchange. And when they drive their car around, they trade us money for the gas that goes in the tank and to heat the stove and to warm the house in the winter. All of a sudden, stuff that could be done with some kind of electromagnetic understanding of the world, lost to the annals of time. Now it becomes a slave system where you rely on people like Jack Horner, Neil deGrasse Tyson, whoever the owner of the Sinclair Fuel Oil Company. We rely on this person for everything. Well, not this Dino, but you know what I mean? The big executives behind the Dino Juice Company, they own all of our fuel and power energy sources. It's all drawn from these petrochemicals. It's all built on top of this entire lie that all these creatures, whether they were real or fake or how much of them is real or fake, the long story short is that they all got balled up by a magic asteroid, mashed down into a sludge underneath the dirt, and there's only so much left before you're totally and entirely enslaved. That's a narrative I think is crazy. It's a comic book villain narrative where we're literally like, we're literally going through it right now. The deception of our days is one in which we fall farther and farther into slavery because we don't know. It's a lack of knowledge. We're perishing for a lack of knowledge. Or maybe we're not. We're being destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Right, to put it more accurately, I guess, or more recitatively. I don't know. All I'm saying is, when I go down to the gas station and Bam-A-Lam requires premium fuel, and it is $4.50 for premium gas, I feel the squeeze. You know, whenever there's about to be another war in the Middle East, the gas prices going up because we won't be able to get ours from over there where it is, and there's only X amount on Earth, you know? That's a really dark narrative. And I think that ties into the big picture, because you see that the people propagating the dinos are bad guys, and they're involved in Epstein and Israel and everything else. And the dino is being used to propagate fuel oil conspiracies. And then the fuel oil conspiracies are the stranglehold by which they run all of civilization. So you hear about stuff like surveillance state, 15-minute cities, AI, and everything that's going on is built on this industry of finite resource. Because while everybody thinks there's only so much land and so much dino juice and so much time left, they'll do whatever they have to hold on to it. The scarcity creates competition and struggle and poverty. And that's because we're out here believing stuff like giant reservoirs of oil beneath the ground are just an area where like a whole herd of brontosauruses got smashed and squished into liquid. And it's just one of the most preposterous non-scientific things you can point to, besides the fact that they invented the Big Bang later to try and make all this make sense. These are guys who have been writing a fictional narrative for decades, for centuries, and every couple of years they have to write something new to make it make more sense. Like in the same way they shifted from the lizardy, scaly dinos, because those are too dragon-like. Now we got flyers with feathers and all this, and it started being like, I read stuff on the internet, and the contempt they have for thinking and common sense. They'll post stuff like, this is a dino, it's a whatever-osaurus. They likely lived a life very similar to modern seabirds, enjoying fish and coastal shellfish. And it's like, you don't know that. They just talk with utter just confidence about nothing, fully made up. You don't know anything 150 million years ago to touch back on that. And then you got a scaly creature that flies by some metrics that you still can't explain for the longest time. Well, what the heck is a pterodactyl? Is that going to work? You know, part of the reason that a bird can fly is because it's super light and its feathers create drag. It's lift. Like, is a dino with like scaly wings? Has anybody even tried this? Has anybody even put together an accurate working model of a pterodactyl that can fly? Even glide? Like, make it stiff and of the same weight and then throw it off the Grand Canyon so it can like soar down like a glider. I need to see that. Is there like an actual to scale? Am I just inept? Am I ignorant? Like, is there like a pterodactyl flight video that's been tested with real bones inside of a construct that's like been released over the cliff to prove, like, I don't know. I don't know if any of that's real. Maybe I'm ignorant about stuff. Maybe I'm just wrong about everything. Maybe the dinos are real and I don't know what I'm talking about. But to me, I see a clear pattern here. Bad guys who run the world conspiring together to lie to you about what's really going on. Not that they have the creativity to fabricate something from thin air. It all comes from something they've already got their hands on. It's something they've manipulated the perspective of. So are there unknown reptilian, perhaps nephilitic creatures loose in the world that maybe even to this day have been hunted to extinction by like the medieval times, you know? Like the rhinos that have almost been hunted to extinction just by opportunists in these countries. You know, the value of the rhino horn or the elephant tusk, the drive for the ivory has destroyed these massive, you know, nearly dinosauric creatures. An elephant is so big and so different from the other animals, aside from like hippos and rhinos. They're like a class of their own, these big, thick, leathery monsters. And same with like the Komodo dragon and other Gila monsters and other weird, you know, these creatures are something else. We turn a blind eye to the fact that those exist because they're not big enough. They're not the prime targets of reset. Like, well, if you were trying to erase dinosaurs, dragons, whatever, you'd target the most outlandish ones first. And you can only do so much to clean up. And sometimes you find in the smudges a stegosaurus on the wall or a couple of sauropods hugging in the bishop's tomb. You know? Stuff like that just slips through the cracks because they're not perfect. It's like I said, they can't even write these stories themselves. They have to like look at something that happened and then be like, oh no, that's not what it was. It was actually this. And then again, we don't need to double check to find out that, oh, it looks like they're all perverts and liars and masons and stuff like employed by Israel. Or whatever. You always find out the same thing about these guys. That's the reality of this stuff. Stuff like this is right along with the Epstein files, with the shape of the earth, with everything. They've created a control scheme based on a deception that they use to dominate our world. And it's sad because the deceptions are not that great. We are just so conditioned that we don't know how to ask. We're afraid to ask. We are conditioned to target people that ask. What are you talking about, you idiot? And I can remember specifically, here's the example I'll give, right? Well, let's get into the contemporary a little bit to kind of round things out before we run out of time here tonight. The year was 2006. Jeffrey Epstein was implicated in his first human trafficking situation, his first real charges. And the United States government gave him this whole sweetheart deal. You can learn all about it on the internet. It's no secret. But they effectively were like, you can go to jail at night. Like it was like, you have to sleep at the jail, but just do whatever you want. You know, a human trafficker. And who even knows if he ever went to the jail at night? We don't know. And so they got caught. The government was caught breaking the law by effectively completely disfiguring this case. The victims were harmed. It goes against statutes to do for Epstein what they did. And so that's why they rearrested him. You know, a lot of people think that like Trump's involvement in Epstein was like that he was getting to the bottom of it. And now Epstein's been whistleblown and they paused. It was the same condition. It was the same villain. It's just that they weren't going to be able to get away with just tucking it under the rug and letting him go to jail at night sometimes. It was literally like the cat was out of the bag because it was already out of the bag. No, people just didn't know. The facts were already there in 2006 that Epstein ran a pedophile island. I bet you can find a 2006 InfoWars where Alex Jones lays it all out. Not saying that I think Alex Jones is right about everything or even that he's totally a good guy. I can't know that. I'm just saying that it's not a secret. And for those of us who were entwined in other things, in 2006, I was like, what, 12 or something? 8? I don't know how old I was as a kid. Yeah, I was a kid. So, I mean, what did I know about Epstein? Nothing, okay? So don't think I'm sitting here like, oh, I knew it and you guys knew nothing. Like, that is not my angle. But what I really think is that there is evidence that exists today for things that shouldn't take us 20 years to figure it out. And I don't want it to. When it came to the Epstein case, 2006, It's now 2026. It's been 20 years since this story broke. It's been 20 years since we saw anything about this. And now we're starting to learn about it. But here's the difference. In 2006, when the same data was available to show that our government was run by a multi-generational Talmudic cult of baby-killing, baby-eating monsters from the darkest depths of hell. These people, we could have found out 20 years ago, and you know what's different? In 2006, the United States national debt was $8.5 trillion. And we didn't know our whole government and financial system was run by pedophiles, so we didn't do anything about it. And now it's 2026, and the U.S. national debt is $40 trillion. So they went ahead and multiplied it by 5 times. And so now we're even farther in the pit, and we're only just now realizing it. Look at how much they got away with. 20 more years of crime before people even began to start sniffing to recognize that this is that bad. And again, I was a kid. What was I supposed to do? Other people were raising kids, working all the time. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just talking about the tragedy of this whole thing. And so I look at these other things differently now, especially in the scope of where we are in 2026. And this isn't just about us trying to get to the bottom and get to the truth. I remember the warm, fuzzy feeling of another conspiracy video, tantalizing. Oh, what's the next secret? Oh, the giant black cube. There was something new. It's always so exciting. Oh, they're behind 9/11. It's Watergate. They're all connected. And then it really blows up when you start learning about the tiny hat people and everything. Once it all starts to connect, it's crazy. It was so exciting. But now we're kind of in this state of what I would even call truth fatigue, where it's everything is so bad at scale that you realize, man, we got to do something about this. We can't just be people who talk on the internet about how crazy it is for entertainment and views. If we don't do something to stop it, 40 trillion will become literal enslavement. And we don't think that's possible. We have this audacity factor where it's it can't be real. If you told people in 2006 that Epstein ran a pedo island or whatever, they'd call you crazy. They'd tell you were an idiot. They'd want you to shut up. You're crazy. Hell, they probably think you were a creep. Only a creep could come up with that kind of, you know what I mean? They will find a way, any way, to accept something other than the reality that was there. And on top of all that, you could have told them in 2006, did you know that in 2026, the U.S. national debt will be over $40 trillion with no end in sight? Another billion to Israel. It's crazy, man. And so with all of that in the scope of this, right? I don't know what the truth is really about dinosaurs, dragons, whatever. I think they're real. I don't know if they're here. I don't know if they're all exclusively celestial or flesh or extinct or in the outer lands or what. But this is the kind of thing they do. So whenever you hear a story, there's some truth behind it. That's what myths are. The suspension of disbelief is the part that's fantastic, the part that's too hard to believe. That's the part that we're trained for, to not accept. But then everything else makes sense, right? Oh, it's people in the story, and we can relate to the characters. And so then when they're flying through space, well, that's the part that's hard to believe. But, as long as Han Solo says that the thing can go around the whatever in some number of parsecs, well, okay, whatever. I don't know what he's talking about, but it's a guy. It's Harrison Ford. So, it's, you know what I mean? That's how they do this. So here's these weird creatures, here's these weird things. I don't know what it is. It's very convoluted and complicated, but don't worry. All you need to know is that they all died. They melted into dino juice, and now we use it to power your car and your stove and whatever other petrochemical thing you need. You got some solvents or whatever. It doesn't matter. Everything plastic is made out of these guys. You're walking around everything plastic from China? Oh, that's made out of dino juice. We got reincarnated dino juice everything. And it's preposterous, but it doesn't end there. Because now we have this fuel necessity. We're all relying on gasoline. Gasoline, let's go back to the gasoline. Gasoline from Gastown. So we're all relying on this. And we're not only just relying on it, we're entrapped by it. We're entrapped at the Sinclair gas station waiting in line for tomorrow because we need to be here by midnight when the number switches over so that we can get gas at the Sinclair. Well, that dino stares at us with that creepy little sideways smile on his face. I know about you. I know what you did. And the long story short is pretty much that I don't buy it. I don't buy the scarcity of fuel issue. And we do need to get to the bottom of what is petroleum fuel, what is shale, what is coal, what is crude oil, Brent crude, is that what they call it? Those things are something else. That is something else. Just like dinosaurs are not what we're taught. They are something else. Are they celestial? Are they interdimensional? Are they Nephilim? Maybe. And I don't have the answer because we're in the 06 on dinosaurs and we need to be in the 2026 of dinosaurs. You see what I'm saying? And this is the case with everything. We're in the 06 about outer space. And there's those of us that know, holy moly, the lie is big. They're all perverts. They're all evil. They're all Talmudic. It's a multi-generational cult. Okay, that's really bad. We need to figure out how we're going to get normal people to understand that in the same way the 06 Epstein is the same Epstein as today. That the 06 Larry, whatever, the 06 Horner is the same Horner in 2026. That guy who was the big paleontologist was actually a rapist the whole time. Okay, and so we only just now know. This is the reality, guys. You know dino is bunk. You know dino juice is bunk. You know the scarcity of fuel is bunk. The inevitability of some kind of 15-minute city powered by solar power, bunk. It's all junk. So if you know that, eventually everybody else has to know that. Eventually everyone else needs to get their 06 Epstein into 2026. And I don't want to wait 20 years to get there. I think we need to figure out how to seize the opportunity right now to be a people that pushes for the reality. This is not the reality that we're living in. This is a myth. This is an explanation for things that are supernatural or mystical in some way, told by a bunch of liars in the priesthood who make it up as they go along. They can see 250 million years in the past, 250 million light years into the future, and they are gods. And I think those days need to end. I think that perspective needs to end. When these guys talk, they need to be challenged. We don't want to be people who go along with this nonsense anymore because every time people ask, what is this Epstein guy? Is there a pedophile island? They said, no, there's nothing. And then later, when they promised they'd do something about it, got into the office and we're like, where is it? And they said, there is none. It's a hoax. Are you still talking about this? Yes, we're still talking about this. We're talking about Epstein and your island and your Talmudic mafia. We know what's going on there. And we're going to keep talking about other stuff. When it comes to dinosaurs, dragons, the perpetually falsified fuel, fossil fuel deception, which is, we'll talk about that next week. We'll talk about fossil fuels and their true origin next week. We'll get into my theory about what I think fossil fuels, quote unquote, the shale and the crude and the coal and all these things you dig up out of the ground and set on fire to survive. I think there's more to it than this. And we'll talk about that next week for sure. But in regards to dinosaurs today, I think they're dragons. I think a dragon is a better term to describe this creature. I think it's more accurate. I think it's more historical. I think it's biblical. And I think that's the better way to approach this. Do they really exist? Yes. I think they do. And I think that they exist in such a way that they couldn't ignore it. And so they embraced it. And I think that the goal of embracing it was to make it their own. So when you look and you drive by a Sinclair gas station, start the year with a full heart and a full tank, and whatever this guy's name is, Milo or whatever. I don't know what his name is. I think Milo's a good name for him. Stop and pat Milo and just understand that is not a dinosaur. That is a Trojan horse. And Milo here is designed so that you don't know the difference between God's creation and some kind of myth, some kind of legend. Is it true that these things may have walked the earth among humans? I think that's likely. Do you think they still exist today? Maybe. I hear stories about Loch Ness Monster, and all I can think about is like the top of this guy's head sticking out of the water. Milo, what are you doing in Lake Loch Ness? You're supposed to be over here guarding the gas station, and you're instead scaring fishermen in Ireland. And so obviously it's a pretty wild world we're living in, and there's a lot of these, dude. Dinosaurs, NASA, and space. The entire evolution theory, right? That's a crazy one. Big Bang itself isn't even until 1931. That's wild. You got heliocentrism and all of these things that, like, look, you and I get it. They'll call you an idiot now. They would have called you an idiot while Epstein was getting away with crimes for 20 years. Like, I'm not going to be told by detractors that I don't know what's going on. I'm very well researched, I think, and I choose to be. I want to be. If something's happening and people believe it, I want to know why. I'm not here to tell people what to do or to be the big lecturer about, like, what's true and what's false. I'm saying we should be allowed to ask. Whenever I smell something like dino juice and they say, oh no, we already figured that out, shut up. Just like, oh no, we already know the Earth is a ball flying through space. Look, we're about to do another moon landing or whatever. Like, come on. They're always retroactively trying to make their current thing seem better. They're future planning proof for their own nonsense that they're building today. And I think that the world deserves the truth in such a way that we teach people to learn how to understand this. That when the people telling you the story are not credible because they're all perverts, that's one. When the story they're telling you doesn't add up because it's fictional. And then finally, when the story they're telling you has an end that results in you having less freedom, you having less authority, you having less independence, and ultimately you being a slave to their system, it tells me everything I need to know about it. When they created the globe, they did it to hide the existence of God. When they created the dinosaur, they did it to hide the existence of God. When they created the fossil fuel industry, spaceball deception, heliocentrism, or anything to do with the deception of the far left and right, geopolitical, two wings of the same satanic dragon. That's what I always say. I don't think there's anything more fitting to explain what exactly is going on here. Two wings of the same satanic dragon. The lies that they present in order to get us to do what they want. And I think that at the end of this, we have the realization that they are liars, they're creeps, and we don't have to believe them anymore. Like, for so long, we were taught to just trust them blindly, to just do it. And we learned that we don't have to, and I want other people to know that. I want other people to ask and press and pry and figure this out for themselves, not just because it's more important to know the truth, but because we got to put an end to this system. We've got to put an end to 20 years of additional debt fraud and theft because we don't get the time back. You know, and I'm not the kind of person who lives for my life here in the world. I kind of see it as like I'm here on a work visa from the kingdom. Like, God's got me here for whatever his purpose is. And I pray that I could be of that purpose, that my life would be that and not wasted trading it for dollars that don't buy any more dino juice anymore. Like, I'm getting to the point where it starts to feel like maybe I'm not the only one. Like, you guys probably understand. It's like, what are we doing here? We're just like working until the day ends and then getting up and doing it again, and it doesn't get us anywhere anymore. Now, I get it. Back in the 50s, it was easy to sit back. Maybe even the 60s, because you get a job and you could earn a life. You could have a jet ski and 2 cars. You could raise a couple kids, have a family. But this generation can't do that, because they can't afford to. And this dinosaur deception is directly linked to it, man. They made up our history, they made up our origin, and then they used it to control us. They used it to write us all these narratives about how we got to pay $5 a gallon for gas. And they just keep taxing us so they can send another billion to Israel. And Epstein just so happens to be... Can't make it up. That's so crazy, dude. But it's okay. I'm not worried about it because, you know, at the end of the day, I think this is the bottom line of the message of all of it, right? No matter how crazy it is, no matter how difficult it is, no matter how insurmountable it is, no matter how massive their deception is, remember that God is bigger. God's kingdom is bigger. It's greater. It's higher. His victory is more complete. His power level is so far beyond anything they could ever create, any lie they could ever deceive us with. Because at the end of the day, God made everything. God made the sounds of the language they use to lie to you with. Every breath they take, they draw at his grace. And so I don't worry about this. I know it sucks, right, that we're living in this crazy time, but it's a transformative time. This is the first time, I think, in American history, human history perhaps, that we've been able to say, dude, they're lying about everything, and we know it. I'm not just conjecture. This is not conjecture. Jack Horner went to his ranch. What do you think he did there with the girls? Come on, guys. Jack Horner, credibility shot. Paleontology just took a big hit. And I'll tell you, as soon as we get the chance to mainstream stories like this, it's over. As soon as the general public realize the world is run by a multi-generational cult of satanic, Talmudic criminals from around the world of various backgrounds, but ultimately the same allegiance to that same satanic dragon they got us all fighting on either wing for, not realizing that it's all BS. This kingdom of darkness is on its expiration route. So when I tell you stuff that sounds crazy, just think of me as Epstein's Story 2006. When I tell you that God's kingdom will have victory over this darkness and deception. God's kingdom is bigger than their lies. He's better than them. His victory is complete. And when I tell you that we will see righteousness rule the world again, I might sound like a crazy person in 2006, but I'm aiming for 2026. I'm looking at the destination kingdom that we are all expecting to receive. And let me tell you, when the half-life of conspiracies was 20 years, 2006 to 2026, that's a long wait. But when I'm sitting here telling you that God's kingdom is going to have victory over this, I'm not just telling you because I like the way it sounds. I'm telling you that the half-life is getting shorter and shorter. What do you think? 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, tomorrow? I leave my mind open to accepting whenever it is, but it is inevitable. And I'm not worried about some liars and their island, and they're all being revealed for one reason or another. PSYOP or not, God is bigger than the boogeyman. And so whatever it is they're trying to scare you with, fear God, not corn. Or dino juice, or the scarcity thereof. Trust me, getting 10 miles per gallon in my car, I should be worried about the dino juice. But you know what? I trust God, and there's a whole lot more to say about the dino juice. I'll be excited to share more of that with you guys next week for what will be level 82 of the Main Character Podcast. But guys, at the end of the day, it's always a treat to be here with you guys to talk about this crazy stuff. And God only knows the real truth. But I think one day we'll see it. I think part of the revelation of the coming of the kingdom of God is not just that we will have victory over all the darkness, but that we will see the light. And all the things done in the dark will be brought to light. And we will know the truth. And the truth will make us free, as God is my witness. So just think about it. When I tell you Destination Kingdom, CDM, the world is going to change for good. I'm telling you this from my 2006, and I might sound crazy now, but give me just a second, because you won't believe what the future has in store. All right? Guys, I love you all so much. Thank you for being here for another level of the Main Character Podcast. In this case, level 81, made possible by the Cult of Con. That is you guys. I'm Con Man, and thank you for being here. Today's episode is powered by the Christian Dominion Movement, because the truth should not only be declared, it should be imposed, and we are not asking permission to make the world a better place, all right? Love you guys. I'll see y'all next week. Take it easy. God bless.
I'm the king, I'm rejecting what you think. Rearranging your mentality, got some Kool-Aid you can drink. It's a scam, it's a plan, it's a con, and I'm your man. You know I tell it like it is, I hold the secrets in my hands. Reflection and introspection is my profession. I'm recklessly disrespecting what you expect, and investing in my discretion, teaching the lessons, impressions to keep you guessing what I do next, man.
Now when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from his prison. He will go forth to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for the final battle, an army whose number is as the sand of the sea.
It's amazing the affirmations that come my way when I fake it until I make it. The truth is waiting, complacent organizations. They say I'm racist, they hate and they making payments on my vacation. I'm the man, I'm the king, I'm rejecting what you think. Rearranging your mentality, got some Kool-Aid you can drink. It's a scam, it's a plan, it's a con, and I'm your man. You know I tell it like it is, I hold the secrets in my hands. Reflection and introspection is